Moxie. Okay, so we all ready? So today's schoolhouse class is brought to you by tip number 12. And that is just telling you what needles, sewing needles I use, machine sewing needles I use. So for piecing, I use a 7010 Microtex. And that's Microtex. For quilting, which quilting is when you put your layers together. So you have your batting and your top fabric, bottom fabric. Or if I'm doing any top stitch decorative stitching, I'm going to use a top stitch 80-12. So you pick 80 or 12 depending where you live. And for machine embroidery, I use a 75-11. Now, the quilting one could change depending on what thread I'm using, but those are my usual ones. So that's tip number 12. And I have to put my tip book somewhere I can find it again. Okay, so for tonight's sewing, I'm using my J-foot. I'm using a Baby Lock. So Baby Lock Brother has their regular everyday foot is the J-foot, and it has a little, might as well take it off and show you, has that little button on the side. And someday, if you're really good students, I'll tell you what that's for, because it actually serves a purpose. So because I'm using my J-foot, I'm going to scroll over until I see the, let's see if I can zoom in for you. There we go. Okay, so let me turn the camera just a little. There we go. So I think you can see how there's a P there? Well, P is for piecing. And I think I tell you this every week. If you have a Baby Lock that's like $500 and up, all the way to the top, you'll have these P stitches. They're piecing stitches. In the bigger machines, if you have the tabs on the side that tell you the stitch group, it's the Q group, quilting group. So I'm going to use the one that's, you see this one is straight in the middle. This one is to the right. I'm going to use this one that's to the right because now I can use the edge of my J-foot as my guide, and my needle has moved over closer to that edge. You can't use this if you're going to use the 1/4 inch foot with the guide. If you're using the 1/4 inch foot with the guide, you want stitch 3, which is your just straight in the middle stitch, because you have a single hole foot, and this needle being moved over would hit the metal of your foot. And I'm going to use my pivot. I know I talk about the pivot, but that's what that button looks like. So if you have that button, that's your pivot. Okay? And I'm just going to back up again here. Oh, back up a little bit here. There we go. And then let's switch to overhead. Oh, stitch length. I'm sorry. Good thing I looked up at your message, Lynn. So when I use a piecing stitch with a P, it automatically takes my length to 2.0. So if I was on a regular stitch, I would do 2.5 or 2.0. 2.0 will give you a little bit tighter stitch, so your seams, you're less likely to see the thread of your stitching. You know how sometimes if you pull a seam, you can see the stitches a little bit. So it just makes a little bit stronger seam. I wouldn't go any smaller than that because then it gets too hard to rip it out. And you know we're going to be ripping out. let's not pretend we're not gonna. Okay, so I got my wooden iron ready, pins ready, thread, just regular sewing thread, not cheap thread. Let me put these are our blocks that we've been doing, so I'm just gonna, and it's just, they're two of the same. So we're on block number 3 today. Let me move block 1 and 2 out of the way. Oh, you're welcome, Lynn. And let's get our book out. So we're working on the builder block for the Gemini. And we want the card trick. I have to have it in English because that's all I can read. So it is on page 7. Oh, so we're actually continuing on from the other page. I didn't notice that before. So, and I'm doing the 6-inch block. So I'm going to need 12. We got a lot of cutting to do today, so we might not get to all of our sewing, but you know how to sew at this point. If you're just watching this for the first time, then I would suggest you go back to block 1 and 2, but also before that we did 2 weeks of practice and talked about sewing and all that kind of thing that might help you out. So we need 12 2.5-inch half square triangles and 12 2.5-inch quarter square triangles. And I think this is the first time we're using our quarter square triangles. So I want my half square. I got my box up over my head. Whew. Okay, so we want our, what do we want? We want the 2.5. So make sure we're on the, you're on the, I'm not good with the light here today. We're on the half square triangle, and we want the 2.5. So the 2.5 is the middle one on the bottom. And you know, I've told you, make sure you have this that shows you the sizes facing the same direction as your dies inside. So I want the 2.5. So that's the middle one on the bottom. Oh, and then I want the 2.5. Oh, I can't grab a hold of it here. Oh. It's hard to pull that out when it's up over your head. And hopefully I got the right one. So this time I want the quarter square triangle. So I'm going to double check my book. 2.5 quarter square. So I'm going to look on here. 2.5 quarter square is over here. Okay, and get that one out. And just so you know who is who, this guy's a little smaller, but also notice, I'll put them side by side here. You notice how this one comes out on an angle and this one comes out straight. So your half square has the angle and your quarter square comes up straight. And I mean, I don't have a pointer. Here we go. This little edge. So see how it goes straight up and down, and see how this one's at the angle. Okay, so that's my half square. That's my quarter square. Okay, so we have to have 12 and 12, but we have to look at the picture because first of all we need 4 different fabrics, and you want 4 fabrics that are pretty different in color from each other. So I did this picture so you could see. So you want really different colors so they stand out. Okay? So we want to look at our picture, and if we look at the top left one first, So that's color 1, let's say. I can see, oh, my pointer was stabbing me. I can see that I have, so up in the corner, left corner, that's a half square triangle because it's half color 1 and half background. Then if I look to the right of it, can you see I have another half square triangle because I have color 1, and then opposite it, I have 2 different colors, which those would be quarter square. So I need 2 half squares of color 1. And then if I come down to the second row, you'll notice now that color 1, the darker color, is like a little triangle. So that's a quarter square triangle. And then to the right of it is the same thing. So I need 2 half square triangles and 2 quarter square triangles of color 1. Okay? So I'm going to put my 2, well, I guess I can leave them right there. So 2 half squares. Does everybody see that okay? If you don't, let me know. So 2 half squares of color 1 and 2 quarter squares of color 1. So I'm going to get my plates ready. I guess I'm going to have to move. I'm going to move this guy up because you have yours to go by. So I want to get my plates ready. So use greatly loved plate that's all got cuts in it is on the bottom. And my tin plate. All right, and I'm paying attention. I have top on this plate. I'm going to have my tin plate. Now I need my fabric 1. So I'm going to grab my gold. So here's my colors, just so you get an idea. And you may not be doing yours Christmas, but I am. So I have 4 colors that are good contrast from each other. So I'm going to start with my first color. And so I need 2 half square triangles and 2 quarter square triangles. So I only need to fold my fabric in half. Okay, oh, and remember, we got to check which way that straight of grain is. So my straight of grain is right here, and I'm going to keep it to my left. So my straight of grain is going along as if I'm feeding it in, okay? And I'm going to have my half square triangle, and I'm going to put it over towards the edge. And we have to think about what edge of this, and let me get over, get in the light more. So which edge of this do we want to have on the straight of grain? Well, if you look at your book and you look at the picture of the block, this piece is on the inside. So we want to have this one to the straight of grain, which would make this one cross grain. So this one, because it's going to get sewn, if I look at my picture, this one is going to get sewn to another piece. Am I looking at the right one? I have to, wait a minute. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was looking at my half square. I'm sorry. So if we look at the picture here, I didn't mean to throw you off. if we look at the picture here, well, let me do it this way because you can see it better. Okay. Okay. So if we look at this picture here, let's get the light. I'm trying to get the light without the glare. If we look at the, so this is our left square. If we look at this middle square, you see how the half square triangle is in there? So it's two sides. So it's like this. So this needs to be on the straight of grain. Now let's look at the front of the book and see if it tells you that so that you'll have it to refer to. Okay, so if you go to the very first page, okay, so here's our grain line, okay, and you see there's your half square triangle. We always put it with one of the short side, and see how the quarter square, I guess it's longer, but the straight part, so not going to the point, but the straight part is what we want in line with the straight of grain. You see that okay? And it's on the page 3, which is the first page of your book. So when you're doing this, when you're by yourself, you can refer back to that. Okay, so let's get back to our... Hi, Christine, glad you came in. So when we're looking at this, let me put it here. I'm trying to turn, it turns opposite of what I think it is. This is the part that we want on the straight of grain, because this will be to the outside of the block. Remember, the outside edge of the block is where we need our straight of grain. We don't want a bias out there because it would stretch more. So I can put that down right there. And I'm going to stay, let's see if I can show you without the glare. There we go. I don't want to butt right up against this with my die because it could move inside there, and if I had a die on top of a die, it might snap it. So I'm going to be, can you see how I'm a little ways away? Okay. And I can't reach my tape. Let me get one that I can reach. I forgot I put my whole caddy way over there. I can't reach it. So I'm using my low tack tape, and I'm going to pick a new spot here. So I'm looking at this and see I haven't done anything over here. So I might as well get over there and make a big dent there. And that was probably a lot of tape. Now, remember, my fold of my fabric is over on my right-hand side. So that, it isn't going to matter a lot in this case because there isn't that much of it. But if I had more fabric, the fold would give me a whole piece of fabric instead of over here that's two separate pieces. You'll see that when you do it, it'll make more sense. Okay? And then I'm going to put my plastic shim. And then, turn my machine on. That's always helpful. And then my nice plate is on top. And I'm going to pull that up a little bit so I don't run into all my camera wires behind me. Oop. I think I got my sewing machine a little too close. That sounded extra crunchy. Okay, so remember, I'm going to take my good plate off, and I'm flipping it over. So I flipped it towards me. I'm going to set it down. Taking my plastic shim, flipped it towards me. Okay, here's my 2 pieces. So I've got, so there's my 2 half squares and my 2 quarter squares. I'm just going to set them right there. Okay. And I'm just going to take my tape, and because I'm going to use it again. And you know, I like to trim up as I go. So see how the folded piece, it's a little big. It might not be worth keeping, but I'll keep it for now. I can throw it out later if I want to. Get rid of my scraps. I still have a nice big piece left. So now I'm going to get my color 2. And my color 2 is whatever color I want to be beside color 1. And you can change it around after, it doesn't matter. But again, I'm checking. Here's my straight of grain. I'm putting my straight of grain on my left side. I figure if I always do it on the same side, it will like it better. I will remember. Remember, I haven't turned this over and I haven't turned this over. So I'm going to turn my bottom plate over, turn my metal plate over, and I can go back up to that same spot because now that spot's down here. I got a nice big empty spot there that I haven't crunched up yet. Put my fabric on. My straight of grain's going this way. So I'm going to put my half square, and remember my straight of grain on my quarter square. So about the same as before. Put a little tape on there. Put my clear cutting plate. I'm sorry, my plastic shim, and then my clear cutting plate. And let me move my machine a little bit. I gotta turn a little bit because I'm running into my sewing machine. Okay. So I'm going to take my clear plate and I'm going to turn it over this time. I'm going to take my plastic shim and turn it over. Put my half squares up there. Oh. And of course, you know, when you're by yourself and you're not watching the demo or not doing the demo, and I'm just placing them, see, I'm placing them together. So this is, so I'll start here. This is color 1, color 2. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead again and trim it up. Well, I've got it right here. Put the ones that are good down. I'm going to go to my color 3. And I'm just going to double check my book and make sure I still have 2 half square triangles and 2 quarter square triangles. I'm going to check my fabric. So that's my straight of grain. Oh, I meant to go this way. All right. So my straight of grain, I'm always going to keep it on the same side. It just makes it easier. I've got to remember this time on my plate, I'm just going to, let's see what did I do before. I'm going to turn it around. And I'm going to turn this one around. Oh, don't crash everything like I did. And I'm just going to pick a new spot. And I'm going to go, oh, about right here, I guess. This looks like a good spot. Right there. So straight of grain on my left-hand side. So I want the straight of grain. Not sure why we don't have better light. Except I'm trying to keep the glare of the metal down. I guess you can see it okay. Tape it in place. Remember the quarter square? This nice straight edge is running with the straight of grain. Tape that down. Make my sandwich. Okay, so this is number 3. So again, I'm going to take my plate, and this time I'm going to flip it. My plastic shim, I'm going to flip it. I think my tape is getting a little, well, it's still sticking. I was going to say it's getting a little crusty looking. Here's color 3. Trim up my fabric. So I'm keeping my little folded piece, the other one. Okay, my 4th color. Oh, not straight of grain, that one. So there's my straight of grain. Putting it again on my left side. Picking a new spot on my, oh, I didn't turn this. So let's see, let's go around and around. Find a new spot. I think I'll go over this way. Okay, my straight of grain is still there. This side is on the straight of grain. And this side is on the straight of grain. Okay, plastic shim. Plastic shim and clear plate. Hopefully you don't have to keep moving your machine like I do, but it's no big deal. We work in the room we got, right? Okay, so plate off, and let's see, what did I do last time? Can't remember. So I'm just going to flip it over. Flip it over. And this time I'm going to throw that tape away. I think I've asked enough out of it. So there's my 4th color. Okay, I'm going to set my dies right out of the way there. Trim up my fabric. Okay, I'm going to flip this around and flip my bottom plate around. And now we have to look at our instructions again. And we need to count up what we need for our background fabric. So we know the 4 corners our half square triangles. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we've got 4 quarter square triangles. So you see them okay? See if I can get, there we go. Oh, these shiny books. So the 4 corners are half square triangles, and then right in the middle, on each side, is a quarter square triangle. So we need 4 half squares and 4 quarter squares. So the first thing I'm gonna, now I have a long piece of fabric, so my straighter grain is this way. So the first thing I'm gonna do is make sure I lay my fabric down that way before I start folding. So this time I need 4 pieces. I'm gonna get a sip before I start coughing. So I'm gonna make 4 layers this time. But I just want to keep in mind, because see, I have a big long piece of fabric here. I just want to keep in mind that this, my straighter grain, is going again the same exact way. If I do it the same way every time, it's just much easier. So I know I've got to have this one here. So I know I have to have the fabric at least that wide. And this guy, we'll see where he might go. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this, what is that, about 3.5 inches or so. So I'm going to fold it over. So I have options. I can fold over this way and then I can fold up. That will give me 4. But I want to cut both sizes at the same time. And I'm not sure that will leave me enough room. So I'm going to just double check. Oh yeah, it will. Plenty of room. So I fold it over. Now I'm going to fold up. Okay, and I'm just going to cut off that extra. And hopefully I counted right. Okay, so I have two layers, and then I folded it up. Okay, now I want to make sure, now I've moved this around, but really what I did is I just took this edge and folded over. But I just want to remind myself where that straighter grain is. And so I'm going to put this one on just the same as I did before. Now I've got a watch in here because, can you see I have all these different layers of different sizes? So I need to do a better folding job. Here we go. So I'm going to put this one on. And I've got plenty of fabric here. And as you do this more and more, and you're by yourself taking your time, you can use less and less fabric. I don't want to go over too far. Remember, this is straighter grain. I don't want to go over too far because I need to look underneath and see where my shortest piece of fabric is. So I think I'm pretty good right there. Okay, so you're all set. This is our last cut. Okay, so I've already turned my plastic shim, so I just have to bring it on top. Wasn't paying attention there. Okay, so I should be done. I'm just gonna take my plate off, turn it over, turn it over. Now, if I've just barely used my tape, I'm just going to stick it back on top. You can just throw it away if you want, but sometimes if you do a lot of this, it adds up after a while, or you run out of tape. It's usually the way of it. I know I'm holding my tape dispenser while I'm trying to take tape off. I hear you. Okay. I'm just going to set my dies aside. Again, I'm just going to trim up my fabric. Save this piece. Get rid of that piece. Turn this over. Turn this over. And set them aside for now. Because before, well, I didn't mean to make that crashing sound. Before I put my cutting away, I want to make sure I've got all my pieces. So you're going to take the picture of the book. So let's get all our, oh, I just tipped mine all over. So let's get all our pieces out. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So if we look at the picture in the book, here's, oh, let me move these out of the way. So here's my top left corner, and now it's color 1, half square triangle. Okay. Color 1. I'm going to leave these a little apart from each other. Is going to go right here. So this is going to be column 1. I'm just going to put a little space between them. So this is our second of fabric 1. And we need, I have to make sure I'm the right way too here. Background. And then this would be color 2. Okay? So now we're on the right-hand side. So that's background. And now we need a half square triangle of color 2. Okay? Now, depends if you come down and go right to left. So we're going to start and go left to right again. So we're on row 2. So we know we need a background right there. And again, I'm going to put some space in between each one. And we know, remember, this is the straight of grain goes on that outside. And then we need a color 2 quarter square. If I said half square, I didn't mean to. It's half quarter square. Okay. And now this is going to be color 3 half square. So I think I will, I'm deciding. I'm switching mine around here for a minute. Here we go. Okay? Now we're in the middle, and the middle is going to take all 4 colors. So first here is going to be the same colors here, so that's color 3. Okay? Up here, because it's touching this one, is color 1. Is that kind of making sense? Okay? Over here, because this is color 3 here, should be color 3. And this will be color 4. Okay? Making sense so far, hopefully? So now we're on the third column, and again, we're going back to this color 2. So color 2 is a half square triangle. So see how there's the card, there's this card, okay? So over here now, we got to start with color 4. So that's going to be here, because remember that long part is going to be on the outside of each section, and then we have to have our background. Does that make sense? So now we're going to go back over to the left again, the third row. So we're working with this color. So we need our half square. See how it's going to match up? And we need a half square of the background, because remember the background, see this background it's on all 4 sides. I know my little side's down a little bit, but let's see if I can push it up a little bit without making a big mess. Did I do that without making too big a mess? There. Okay, so this is color 3 with the background. So you have a background in all 4 corners. Okay, so now we're in this middle bottom one. So we need to continue on with color 3. So it is going to go, where am I? Color 3 is going to be right here. Okay, I've got color 4. So color 4, we only have our half square triangles left. It's going to go there. This, remember, on all these middle sections is background. And then the only spot we have left is right here. So how are you looking? Everybody looking good? You look like a card trick? So I'll give you a minute, just a minute, if you want to change your colors around. Just remember, it's not your prom dress. It's okay. It doesn't have to be the perfect color match. Okay? So we're doing pretty good for time. Excuse me. And it's nice because your cutting really goes fast. And like I said, when you're not just following me along, it goes faster. So I'm going to put my dies away. We're just going to set them aside for now. But normally I would just put them away. I'm going to get my wooden iron ready. Got my pins ready. So we want to look at this. And I'll probably leave the camera here rather than switch back and forth, because I'm pretty sure you know how to sew now. So what I want to do is I want to get these little pieces done first, or I might want to go in order. Okay? So if we go in order, we're going to start at the top left. We're going to flip our color 1 on top of our background. And while it's right there, we're going to pin it for the side we're working on. Okay? I'm going to bring the machine a little closer here. I'm going to make sure when I take my pin out that I'm already lined up to go. I'm going to line this up, and today we're not chain piecing. I don't think I would chain piece this one myself. I think it'd be just easier if you just do a section at a time. Why mess it up if you don't have to? I gotta find my foot pedal. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and sew. Okay. So I'm gonna open this up and I'm gonna press my seam to the darker side. So I've got my darker fabric on top. I'm just going to press it out. And I'm just going to put that back where it belongs. Now I'm going to come to this one, and this is 3 pieces. So I need to put these 2 together first. And this is where you really want to be careful of what side you're sewing on. So here's my color 2. I'm going to flip it up onto my background. And I'm going to put a pin in the side I'm going to sew. And I'm just going to quickly get that sewn. It's a little piece. Okay. Oh, looks like I took a pretty big seam there. Again, I'm going to flip it so my dark side is on top. And I'm going to make sure I put it back where it belongs so that I can see all of my reds, or color 2, are touching each other. All of my color 1 are touching each other. Okay? So now I want to flip the one I just made over onto the color 1 half square triangle. Put my pin in. Okay, take it over to the machine, line it up, and stitch it. And remember, sometimes if you're having difficulty lining up, just take a stitch or 2. Make sure your needle's down in the fabric so that now it's helping to hold on to those pieces while you get the, let me show you. So this part is held down by the, let's see if I can get a little closer. There we go. So the beginning of, the beginning of my block is held down by my needle being down, while I use my fingers to make sure I've got this end lined up. And I'm just going to make sure that this seam, because it's facing towards me, it shouldn't flip. And remember, I'm going to hang on. And I don't have a lot to hang on to over here on my left, but I'm still going to hang on to it as it goes by the needle. Okay? Now, I want to press towards this one because see how I've got a seam here. I don't want to press a seam towards the seam if I can help it. So I'm going to press it towards the color 1 or the half square triangle. Okay? And I just want to make sure that every time I put the pieces back like they're supposed to be. Okay? If you decide to take yours to the iron, just press. Don't iron, just press. Okay? So now we're on column 3. I'm just going to flip it on top of the color 2. Put a pin. Take it over to the machine. Make sure it's lined up. and stitch. And you'll be sitting in front of your machine where you're right, you're not looking from an angle. You're looking straight at the front of your machine. So again, with my dark colors on top, press it out. But make sure, see how I put that back? Make sure you put it back the way it's supposed to be. Okay? So we're going to just leave that just like that. And so you can still see the card trick going on. So now we're going to be on the second row. So the first thing I have to do is put those little half square triangles together. So I'm going to flip it over. Make sure I put my pin in. And the pin again is going on the side you're going to sew on. I'm going to come over here and see how I've got my pin. My pin is right here. Okay, so now, see how I was all crooked? It's okay, because now that I'm here, I can just straighten them up. But I want to make sure I stay lined up the way that pin was. It's like everything. If you do it the same way every time, you just get in the habit of it, and after a while, you don't even have to think about it. Not that you won't make a mistake, because you will. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news. Okay, so now, this is a perfect place. If you have your extension table for your machine, you'd have this right up on your extension table. So again, I'm going to press to the darker side. And I want to make sure that I put this back. Oh, I knew something wasn't right there. Put this, so see I had that like that. Well, first of all, this needs to be in the corner. Second of all, these 4 gold pieces need to touch each other because that's what makes that card. See, the reds need to touch each other. The greens need to touch each other. Okay? So now I've got these 2 pieces together. I'm going to flip them onto the half square of that's fabric 3. So I'm going to flip it. I'm going to put that pin in. And the pin doesn't have to be in there pretty. Mine's not in there pretty. And I'm going to just take it over, make sure the pin is to my right as I'm lined up to the needle of my sewing machine. I'm going to get everybody lined up. Start to sew. Remember to hang on to that fabric until your hand is past the left side of your needle. And again, I'm going to flip because I got a seam here. I don't need my other seam going towards it if I can help it. And the reason I keep saying that is because I don't know when we start to put pieces together, the rows together, if that might need to change. Okay, and I want to make sure I put this back where it belongs. So I need to look at, and remember, this background is out in the middle side, it's to the outside. See, your 4 corners are your background, and then see how this middle is background. So if that helps you. Okay, here we go. Here's the big test now. So now we've got 4 pieces to put together. Yeah, let me move everybody out of the way here a little bit so you can see. See our 4 pieces. So we're either gonna flip them up this way or flip them this way. But you got to do it the same way both times, or flip them down. I'm going to go ahead and flip mine down. So I'm going to take color 1 and it's flipping on to color 3. So I'm going to flip it and pin it. Not doing a good pin job today. Okay, before I do anything, I want to do this one at the same time because I want them going the same way. So I flip this one down, I'm going to flip this one down. Okay, and I'm going to take them over to the machine. And again, if you had your table, your extension table, you'd be right there. But I want them in the same order that they were when I flipped them. So this was my first one, this was my second one, because we're going to chain these together. Okay? So my needle is, my pin is over here to this side. So I can take my pin out, straighten my fabric up, because these are little pieces if you're doing the 6-inch one. And if you see me doing this, where I remember the last time, that's just getting that needle, that's getting that thread out of my way, because sometimes it wants to bully my fabric. And I'm hoping I'm going to be as straight as I can be. Again, we're going to stop before we get to the end because we're chaining these together. So I'm going to pick up my next one. My pin's over here. Take my pin out. Make sure everybody's lined up. And I can tell because my back piece that we just did is nice and straight. And this one, got to do this with my hands not in the way. This one coming up is nice and straight. And remember, we want to butt them close together, but not too close. Okay, so now we have this. Okay? So let's see if, so here's my two pieces. I'm going to lay them down like they're supposed to be. I'm going to open them up. So the first one, because my lighter color, excuse me. So you remember we've done this before. We need the top seam going left or right, but the bottom seam's got to go the opposite. So I'm going to have my top seam go to the left and my bottom seam go to the right. So my bottom seam going to the right, my seam allowance, I can just flip my top fabric over because see my seam is right there. Okay? And then this one, I'm going to have to flip this way so that I want my seam allowance on this side. Okay? But I am going to go ahead and take it over to my work table and make sure that I have everybody going the right way. Okay? So there's my card 1. Here's my card 2. Here's my, well, this is my card 2, sorry, my card 3. So all my colors, my red's lined up with my red, my gold's lined up with my gold, the black's lined up with the black, and the green's lined up with the green. So I know I'm good. So now I want to take these two, and I'm just going to flip this one on top of the other. So that's the two parts we just did. And let me flip over to this one. I want to make sure that I have one seam allowance is going one way and one is the other. So here's a seam allowance is going right. Here's a seam allowance going left. So if you don't have them going the right way, just fix it. And make sure you feel all the way down to make sure that seam allowance is locked all the way down. All right, I'm going to put a pin in, and you would set this down on your table, not hold it up. I'm going to put that pin in right after that seam, because remember, I want to sew along. I got to be careful this doesn't flip back on me, but I want to sew along till my needle hits in that seam before I take that pin out. That way I know I'm not shifting my seam, you know, my seams matching together. Okay? I'm not real worried about this end down here yet. They're close, but they're not perfect, and I'll fix that when I get towards there. I'm just concerned now with my seam that's in the center. So I want to stitch slow because I don't want to hit my pin until my needle's in that seam allowance somewhere. Now I can make sure my needle's down. I'm just going to make sure that my two pieces, I'm trying to do this so you can see. I want to make sure that my two ends are lined up. I'm going to keep my finger there, holding those two together, and my other hand is to the left. And I'm going to hold that as long as I can. But you see, my left hand is going to hold this whole piece until I'm done sewing. Okay, and let's see. Oh, looks pretty good. So you remember how we did the twirl. So let's do a twirl. I'm going to have my seam ripper. So we're going to twirl. Okay, so this one's going up, this one's going down. So this one has to go this way, and this one's going to go the opposite way. So I need to take those stitches out. Oh, hold on, let me get my... Oh. So I need, remember, this is my seam. So I can take these stitches out that are past my seam, and it's locked by that seam coming by. So I'm just going to pull those stitches out, turn it over, because it's two different seams, it's not the same seam. And pull those stitches out. Okay, then I'm going to hold this again. I don't remember how, I guess I was this way. So we're going to do our twirling, and yours might go counterclockwise. So I'm going up, and I'm going over. This one's down, and then this one goes left. And see, there's my little tiny four patch. You see that? Isn't that cute? Okay? And I want to give it a little squish in the middle. And after I made that nice pretty twirl, I want to make sure everybody lines up again, because I almost had it like this. So I got to turn it, and I'm going to look again to make sure, because I remember I moved everything out of the way there. So I want to make sure that, again, my reds, my golds, my black, my green. Okay, so I'm just going to stop for a second, see if anybody has any questions or needs to catch up. We're all good? Okay, have to turn my chair all the way around to find my drink. Okay, give your shoulders a little roll there, relax. You might be all tensed up now. Okay, so we should be able to move along a little faster now. So if you want to sew ahead, that's fine. So I'm on my third one. I'm going to flip. We're going to do our two little ones before we hook to the big one. So I generally put my finger on the one I'm flipping to and then flip. I don't know why I do that. I just do. Got my pin in. I'm starting to get my pins over where they don't belong. And I should have laid it down to put my pin in. I shouldn't have picked it up. I forgot I wasn't alone. Okay, I'm going to open that up, and again, I'm going to press to the dark side. And you remember, this little guy is on the outside in the middle row. Okay, now I'm going to flip up. This one I'm going to leave my pin in. No, I don't have to. I was thinking I was matching up a seam, but I'm not. So I'm just going to put my pin in on the side I have to sew, bring it over and sew. And I'm not going to keep switching the camera back and forth because it'll just be probably too much for you. Your eyeballs won't like it after a while. Always make sure there's a little bit of fabric under the needle. And you're hanging on to your fabric until it's all done sewing. Bring it back, put it where it belongs. Remember, this is to the outside. The single fabric's on top. Okay, just take a second and go, okay, everybody's still matching up. This is an easy one here. I'm just flipping down. Put my pin in on my sewing side. Oh, sorry, can't see it. On my sewing side. I don't take my pin out until I'm lined up where how I need to be to get ready to sew. Make sure my fabrics are lined up together. Find my pedal. My pedal's getting away from me. Okay, come back over. Dark side on the top. Okay, remember, light fabric is in your background fabric is in the corner. See right here, I know you can't see the whole thing, but here, let me move up a little more. See, it's over in the corner. Okay, you got to put the two little pieces together before the big. So flip it down before you even move it. Put your pin in on the side you're going to sew. Bring it over to the sewing machine. I'm beginning to sound like a broken record, aren't I? Okay, back over. Dark side on top. Again, if you want to iron, just a little press. Okay, let's put it back where it belongs. Let's make sure everybody is together. See, my black is all together. Now I'm going to flip my green over. I'm going to flip that. That wasn't even a close flip. Put my pin in on the side I'm going to sew. Bring it over to the machine. pin out, line it up. Make sure that the beginning and the end are both lined up. Okay, back over. We're going to go to the side that doesn't see there's a seam. So we don't want to put a seam against another seam. Generally that works out. In some cases it just doesn't. You know, just depends on how everything goes together. And I'm checking again. My blacks are all together. So now I'm down to my last one. So I'm going to flip that down. And if you want to, you can get it all lined up nicely. The problem if you start lining it up is you're going to start moving it around, and then you won't have the pin in the right place. So that's why I put the pin in. Bring it over to the machine. I'm lined up now how I need to go. Take the pin out. Line up my fabrics. And see how I'm still hanging on to this fabric until I'm done sewing it. Oh, here we go. Dark on top. Okay, so I want to do a double check. Make sure everybody's where they need to be. I'm going to move them a little apart from each other. Okay, so now we're going to do our webbing or our chain piecing, where this is column 1. We're going to flip each one of column 2 on top of it, and we're going to sew down so that they're all together. So I'm just going to flip this over, line it up as best I can for the moment. Put a pin in, flip this one over, pin in, and again, pin is on the side where we're stitching. Flip the last one over. Like, remember, we're turning the page of a book. Okay? I'm only going to pick up one at a time. And again, if you have your extension table on, you're going to be up here and very close to your sewing machine. So let me just check if anybody has any questions. I think you're all busy sewing. Okay, I gotta take my glasses off. I can't see with my glasses on close up. So I'm gonna pick up the first one, my row 1. I'm gonna bring it over. Okay, let me see if I can come over this way a little. That helps any at all. Take my pin out. I want to make sure I'm still lined up where I need to be. I've got seams here. See? So I may want to, all right, so let's look at this. So both my seams are going the same way. You see that? Now I don't really want to push this one over because I'm pushing it over a seam on a seam. But I can push this one over. So I can take and push it. And that's why it's good not, one of the reasons it's good not to press it, because it'll be more permanently there if you pressed it. So now I've got this seam is going left and this one is going right. Remember, I'm still right here. Okay, and if you're not sure, if you open it, these two colors should be touching each other. And remember, this guy in the middle is up on the edge. I don't know why my pieces are guys. And I'm just feeling to line up my, so I'm trying to line up these seams. Okay, so I'm looking here. I want you to see this, is because this is what happens. I'm just going to set this down for a second right there. Can you see? You see how that's put? Can you see that this, how bumpy that is? Well, I didn't press it open enough. Oh, see, now you can see the crease. Well, hold on. See that crease right there? Well, I had creased this down, and I still had that, shoot, almost would be half of an eighth. I know it's a 16th, but half of an eighth doesn't sound so bad. But you can see the crease where I had it wrong. So I got to remember. So what I'm going to do, and this, because this is what I want you to do, we're going to go back to the work table. We're going to take our two pieces that were that were here. I want to put it back. First, I want to make sure that I press out that crease that I had. And I could see it when I was trying to put the two seams together. It was easy to see then. I gotta put my glasses back on again. So remember, this piece is up here. It's on the outside edge. You still got these two. And then this one goes to the corner. Okay, so remember, that's up in the corner. So because we were fidgeting around with everything, I want you to just be careful that you don't turn it and sew on the wrong side. And so take a minute and put it back where it belongs if you have to. We know this is in the corner, and we know this is on the outside edge. So now I can flip them back over. Okay, get my pin again. Take it on over. And let's try this again. So, let's let the camera adjust it for a minute. When I opened this to show you, I could see the crease. You can almost still see where the crease was there. See it? So I could see that crease, and I could almost feel it because nothing was lining up. So I still have my pin in, but I'm fixing this seam so they're together so I can take that pin out and stick it back in again if I need to. Only because I'm holding this up for you, I don't want to get myself confused. But I'm going to make sure the whole way down that those seams are locked together the whole way down. That will help keep this and this part and this part straight. Okay? So I've got that nice and locked together. I can take my pin out. Okay, so this time we're going to make a chain because we're webbing them all together. So I'm going to pick up my second row. Okay, second row is my third row. So second row, bringing it over. Okay, pin is on the right side. Again, I got seams going on. If I can, so I can't really move this seam. That one's going the same way. So remember I told you that sometimes you're just going to have to go with that seam going over this seam because I got to have them being opposite each other. Does that make sense? So I want, this seam is going left, this seam is going right. This is my little twirly one, so it's a little hard to move this seam now. Okay, so I'm going to move the back one instead. And I'm not going to worry about this back here except to line up so that I can feel, oh, okay, here's a good one for you. So watch this. because this is going to happen. So I took care of this seam up here. So this one's going this way, and this one back here is going left. But if I come down to the bottom, look, because I got my twirly going, so now that one's going left, and so is that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this, let's see, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to teach you this one. I'm going to, let's say we're going to leave it the way we had it, okay? So this time, my seams are going the same way. So I'm going to look here. I'm going to open this up. And I just want to make sure, see, my pin is still in. I just want to make sure that these two seams, let me move my pin down just a little bit so you can see. So these two seams are lined up with each other. You see that? See how they're lined up? Okay, now, if you want to, you can take this back, and I'm holding this, let me get back. I'm holding this in the middle. I've got it pinched in the middle. I can take this seam, just this part, and see how the other part's going to stay? But that's a lot of work. If you can do it, that's fine, but I'm just going to leave them both going the same way, only because that's going to happen. And I'm going to try to, as carefully as I can, line up. So see, these are going the same. So I'm going to carefully bring it up, and I'm just going to move my pin up and leave it in till I get started, okay? And I don't have to worry about there's no seam down here. And remember, I left my pin in. So what I want to do is I'm going to leave my pin in until I get a couple stitches done for that, my third hand to hold this for me, okay? That was a lot, wasn't it? Just when I tell you to do it one way, now I tell you to do it another. Okay, so I've done a few stitches. Now I can take my pin out. My needle's down, my foot came up, and I just want to line up this bottom. And I always put my finger, I'm holding it with my finger and guiding it, and this hand is staying to the left. Okay, now our goal is to have this 1/4 inch. See how we got 1/4 inch past our point? That 1/4 inch is going to be in the seam, okay? And I shouldn't have cut that because I got one more row to do, right? So let me put it back in, and I'm going to go back and re-stitch because I shouldn't have taken it out. I got all excited, and I want to make sure, my head's going to be in your way for a minute. I want to make sure that I put my needle down right in my previous stitching, and I'm just going to do a locking stitch. And then I'm going to go to the end and stop. I got ahead of myself. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my 3rd row. Needles on, pins on this side. I'm going to have, so now I've got them going the same again. So I'm just going to push this back one to the opposite way of this front one. So see, here's my front one going left. I'm going to push my back one going right. Okay, and that, see how I left my, if I hadn't left my pin in and I'm fixing this seam, I might have ended up sewing over here because the seam is at this end, not up here. So I want to push that down so that these seams meet. Okay, and I'm going to get them lined up. And what I'm going to do is, well, my pin went under my machine. I'm not taking this pin out. I'm just going to come down here. I'm going to match up my seams at this edge. And I know the focus will come in and out because I'm moving things here. And I just want to put a pin in down here because I want to leave that one in. But I left this in so I know which side I'm supposed to be on, because you're invariably going to go over and sew here. So now I can take this one out because I've got another one in there. Hope that made sense. And I'm just going to line up my top, continue on. My seam is facing that way, so it wants to flip this way. So that's why I stop, make sure it gets under my foot in the direction it's supposed to be. My pin's there. I've got to take that pin out, but I'm putting my finger on that fabric because I don't want to pull my pin out and move my fabric. So I put my finger on this fabric, both fabrics, and then took my pin out. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's go back to the, have I still got everybody? You're so quiet. So here's my column A with column B on top. I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to try if I can. I think I'm going to have my first seam is going to the left. Oh no, see, I really need it to go to the, I need this one to go left. We got a lot of seams going on now. So I'm going to put row 2 to the left and row 1, and all I'm doing is reaching under and pushing the seam allowance to the right. We're going to hope that everybody likes that. And then this one, so which way did I go? Left. So now I got to go right again. It's a lot of seams. And you know, a lot of seams means we have a lot more room for the block not coming out the right size. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but okay, so I've set this down again. Oh, good. Thanks, Rhonda, for letting me know. I sometimes wonder if it's frozen and on your end, and I'm just sewing away, having a grand time. Okay, time to do a little shoulder, rotate your shoulders a little bit. Generally, as you're sewing along, your shoulders go higher and higher and higher until they're up at your ears. So I'm just taking a minute to clean up. So, okay, so now we've got column 1, column 2. Now we got to add column 3, but we're going to do another double check, and everything seems to look good. But, I've said that before, haven't I? Minnesota run. But all my golds are touching. My reds are going to be touching. My blacks are touching, and my greens. So now, just like reading the book again, we're flipping, turning the page. You get that out of the way. Oh, I just hit my knuckle with that. So, flipping over, putting the pin in. I'm not lined up perfect, it's okay. Flipping it over. I'm going to try to line up as best I can, but I'm going to be fighting with those seams again. Put my pin in, flipping it over, or turning the page, putting my pins in. Well, now when I pick this up, it's gonna be in in the order it needs to be. And I just got to make sure that my pins are all on the right hand side. Okay? So, glasses off. Here we go again. So, you can see, come on little guys. My pins are all on the right hand side. This is when it's nice to have the extension table, because the extension table is in the front too. Kind of helps you out. So my pin is over here. My next pin is over here. So it helps me keep track. I know now that I have 2 rows to my left, or 2 columns to my left. So I shouldn't get I shouldn't start sewing this way. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have that issue at this point. But you never know. Might have had too much moxie. So again, I've got both of my seams are going the same way. So I'm going to go ahead and push this one up. And you know, every time I move my hands, the focus moves. So let me see if I can help my focus along. There we go. And I didn't put lotion on, so I look like I got all dry hands. So this seam is going right. This seam is going left. And I want to snuggle them in together. Not just up in this little corner, but try to go all the way down, because that helps keep this straight. Okay? And if you want to, if you're in the pinning mood, you can go ahead and put a pin further down. And you may want to do that simply because you've got drag on this now with the weight of the rest of this. Okay? I want to make sure also that I'm straight across this top here. Okay? And again, I gotta stick my nose in the way. There we go. Oh. And I'm gonna go ahead and go a couple stitches, because remember, my needle is my third hand. And now I can take that pin out. And I'm not concerned with these guys. I'm gonna get them out of my way. I just want to make sure that my 2 corners are lined up. My finger's here. My hand is over here. I'm going to stop. I'm not all the way done. I'm almost done. I'm going to go to this one. Take the pin out. And now this one, there's no seam up here, but there is a double seam down here. And this is 4 seams and 2 seams. So I can try to have my top one, see, it was going this way. I can have it go this way. So now this seam is right. This seam is left. But more importantly, I want to make sure that see if I was off, I want to make sure that they're lined up right together. And I can feel them, but I'm still going to take a peek and look and see how they're looking together. Okay? And I see I move this all around. It's like, where am I? I've got to put it all back where it's supposed to be. And again, I can, because I'm concerned about my end more than my beginning. So if I get that just right, and I can put that pin in, trying to do it so you can see at the same time. So I'm just putting my pin at the bottom, because those are the seams I'm trying to match up. Get my top right. Okay, got my third hand helping me again, so I can take that pin out. Just double check. See, I can see that the two are lined up together. Making sure I'm lined up along this side and along the bottom. My finger's on that spot. I'm going to get close to the end, get ready for my next one. Got the same problem again. Both my seams are going the same way. This has more seams to it. So see here? You see there's a seam there. There's a seam here. So I don't want this one coming back. And this one, because he's out here by himself, can go the other way. So this seam is right. I'm going to have this seam go left. So it's a perfect example when you can't always press to the dark side. You could, but then you're just fighting with the seam allowance. So I'm going to make sure that those seams are good. Again, I can move my pin down. If it was my first pieces together, I'd have left that pin in and pinned down. But because I know I've got two squares on this side, I know I have to sew on this side. So I'm going to get my top lined up. Start stitching. Is my third hand. My needle's down, my foot comes up. I'm going to take that pin out, making sure that everybody's lined up. So I'm lined up along this side. I'm lined up along this side, and my little seams are lined up. Okay, so let's go back to the work table. I find my glasses. There they are. Okay, so let's open it up and hope we've done everything good. Okay, so generally, this seam we pressed to the left. So this seam we're going to press to the right. So if I look, I can see my seams there. I just have to fold that fabric over. Okay, this middle is going to be a... Or did I go the other way? Which way was I going? Okay, so my middle one, I'm pressing in. In this case, I've got so much seams going on you just hope for the best. So these seams went out. These seams are going in. So I need to push this seam so it's going to the left. And this seam is going to the right. If you have them the opposite, that's fine. So if these are coming in and these are going out, that's fine. So these went in, these will go out. I think we were probably opposite before, but okay. So these seams went out, these seams went in, these seams went out. Or you could be opposite. We just know that we want this seam opposite of this seam, which is opposite of this seam, which means these two are the same, and this one goes the other way, whichever way you do it. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this, and I'm just going to double check that my card trick looks like a card trick before I go any further. Okay, so I'm just going to flip this one over. And I know I have to sew on this side because this side has something hanging off of it. So this time I can pick it up, and I can try to work with these seams before I get to the sewing machine. So I'm just going to make sure that my bottom one is going right and my top one is going left. because that seems to be the way they are. Snuggle them together. Make sure you're lined up this way. And I'm going to put a pin in just after the seam. Okay? I can put a pin in at this beginning. So this seam is going left. That seam is going right. Hooray! We didn't have to do anything. So remember, when I put a pin in up here, I don't want it up at the very edge because I'll have to immediately take it out. But if I line up everything, make sure my seam allowance, I can feel it the whole way down. I'm going to put my pin about right here. So this should be lined up, and this pretty well should be lined up. Now I'm going to come down to the next one, because it's like, let's worry about one thing at a time. So this seam is going right, and this seam is supposed to be going left, I think. Yes, see, this one's supposed to be in, so we're good there. And I just want to make sure that I can feel that not lumpy all the way down. I feel lumpy at the beginning here. There we go. And then again, 2 more seams. So I have my top one is going right, and my bottom one is going right. Now see, this one's already sewn in, so it has to go right. This one's already sewn in. It really has to go right. So what we're going to do is we'll have, let me see, this is going to be the bottom. We'll have the bottom one go right, and I'm going to make the top one go left. And I'm going to show you, normally I would do this when I'm done sewing, but I want you to see it so you don't forget about it. Let me switch to the close-up. I normally wouldn't use these big scissors, but what I want to do is, so what happened is, I need this seam to go left, but it's sewn in right. So see how it does a little twist right there? So if I just take and cut, oops, sorry. And I'm not cutting, let me see if I can get close enough. You see, I'm not, so I can now do this. Look. I didn't cut all the way to the stitches. There, that's a good shot right there. See it? Okay, so I'm just going to have that one go that way and this one go this way. All right, so when you get all done and you have some seams that are twisted like this would be, then you just do that little cut and fix it. And now it lays nice and flat. How's that? Okay, so we're ready to sew. So I want to make sure again that my top's lined up. This probably has more seams in it than the first 2 blocks we did total. I'm going to make sure I get my needle in a couple stitches, my third hand. Okay, my only concern now is this next seam. I don't care about any of this down here. This is like in life, one day at a time. This is one seam at a time. Should be a show, shouldn't it? Okay, so I just want to make sure, remember we pinned and lined up right after this seam. So I'm just got my finger so I can feel that that seam is flat. And remember, my seam is facing that way, so it's going to want to flip back this way. So because I have pivot, I can stop. If you don't, stop, put your needle down, put your foot up, and make sure that that seam gets the chance to get under the presser foot in the direction it's supposed to be. And then I'm going to go slow because I want to make sure that my needle is in right around that seam so that when I take this pin out, that seam isn't going to get out of kilter. And now I'm coming down to the next seam. And you heard my little clang bang, and that's probably because you got about 3 seams trying to hit each other. And I want to make sure I can see. Can you see over here? I've got more green. See the green there? So I know that this isn't lined up. So I got to make sure that I'm just going to give this top one a little tug so that I can see that underneath fabric. Okay, so let's see what kind of disaster we have going here. Oh, we're looking pretty good. So what we were trying to do is line up here, and we're going to try to line up here. And I can feel, because there's a lot of seams back here, so this isn't going to feel comfy lined up here until we're done pressing it with the actual iron. But that looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but close enough for me. Okay? Is it close enough for you? So we got one more side to go. So we're just going to flip this one up, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to see which way we can get our seam allowance go. Now this seam allowance is already stitched in, but this one isn't, so I can flip this back now. And I think that's probably the way it should have been. So I want to line these two guys up first. Put my pin in. Now I'm going to come up and address this issue at the beginning. So I want to make sure that this seam allowance is going right. This one needs to go left. I'm going to feel the whole way down, or at least it goes halfway down. And when I do that, that helps line this top up. So I got that lined up. I'm lined up here. I'm going to put a pin in a little bit down. Now I'm going to go down, and I've already addressed this seam. Now I got to address this one. And let's see what we got going here. This underneath one wants to go left, and this one's going right, so that makes me happy. And again, you can see that I'm feeling going down that seam to make sure that it matches the whole way down, and that will make this line up and this line up. What would I do without the word this and that? And then I'm going to get down to the end, and I'm good because the top one wants to go right and the bottom one is going left. If nothing else, you'll know your left from your right by the time you get this done. I got a dull pin there. Okay, we're looking pretty good. Look at all those seams. You still with me? Anybody decided that was too much and left me? Okay, so let's switch back. So again, I'm only concerning myself with getting the needle in, this is right, and getting a few stitches in so I can get this pin up. I don't care what's going on down at this end for now. I mean, I would care if it was really bad. And I want to make sure, so I'm going to go ahead and get my needle in. And I'm going to take that pin out because I want to make sure that my fabric underneath is lined up. And I'm looking ahead because I'm trying to remember which way the seam is going. So my underneath seam is heading back. So my feed dogs may want to flip it the other way because there's like a gremlin underneath there somewhere that likes to do things that you don't like to your fabric. So again, I stop, I double check to make sure that my two fabrics are lined up. Everybody's in their spot. I've got this seam again, so if I don't lift my foot up, my foot's going to press that seam, push that seam this towards me, and I don't want it to do that. I'm going to stitch a little ways further, not too far. But you notice when I take my pins out, I'm holding on to my fabric. Because when you take your pins out, sometimes you yank the fabric. The pin just does that. And I just want to double check that my two corners are together. Happy together. Okay, let's see what we got this time. Okay, so that's what we just did there. Look, it's not perfect. See, it's off a little bit. I'm okay. This one's fine. Okay? Okay, so we're done. And it should measure 6.5. And it does. And don't measure it until you've pressed it. So you want to flip over. Look what's happening in the back. Remember, here's that seam that we cut to go one this way, one that way. So look and see if there's any place else that needs that. So I would make sure everything's going right. And look, our little twirl's right in the middle. I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to use my wooden iron first, because sometimes that's going to help me not have creases. And I can feel I got a big bump there. And I'm going to see if, because I've got stitches that, you know how I have my stitch line coming down. So I've got stitches, and I'm going to undo them and see if I can get a little twirly going there. Isn't going to hurt anything to try. So can you see right here? This is the line of stitching going down. I've got stitches here that I might be able to, maybe I can get some kind of a twirl going, because I can feel a knot there. And I don't feel it as much here because my machine flipped that part way open. So let's see if I can get rid of that feeling like a big knot. And if you run your seam ripper towards you, see like I just did? Yeah, I stabbed myself. These stitches are buried right in, so I'm gonna see if I can get it from this top angle. So I may have to open this seam. So let's see what I can get here. I'm gonna open this seam. That feels a little bit better, I think. So I'm going to open this seam, and that just means that let me get on the close up. So opening the seam, see what I did? I just opened it because I had a big clumpy feeling right here. And I'm going to try to open it, because you'll be doing it on your table. But I can't open it with the iron. I've got to open it with my fingers first. So I want to make sure here, if I have any of those stitches coming out, like a twirly was, so that I can get this open. There we go. Okay? So, and you can probably feel on yours if it feels a little better, or go to the side. I'm not so sure now, but I'm feeling both of them. I'm not sure which way feels better. I'm trying to avoid having a big clump, and I can feel that this right here is on top of all that bunch. So it isn't going to work to open it up. But I opened it up to see how, if it would feel less like a marbles in there is kind of what I'm thinking. But it feels better actually pressed to one side. So you have to try it out and see, because your seams may not be going the same way my seams are. So once I have it pretty much like I want it, I'm going to go ahead and press, and this is especially good to do on your wool mat because your wool mat is thicker and this can kind of sink down in there a little bit. So I'm just going to press, I'm going to let it cool for a minute, flip it over, and I got to press again because if I iron it all, I'm going to start moving things the wrong way. So I'm going to take one little section, make sure it's good, put my iron down. Come over to the next section, put the iron down. The next section, put the iron down. Put the iron down. Okay? And then let it cool a minute, and then turn it over and double check that you didn't make a crease. And that's why I like to use my wooden iron first, because hopefully I'll get all those creases out. And then you can turn this, when you get ready to put your block in, you can turn it in whichever direction you want. So there we go. There's our card trick. If I still got you, are you still with me? Okay, so we did our card trick. Let's see. So next we're going to be doing it. We're going to do an easy one next. It's going to be this one. So if you, let me see where that, hopefully, I'm not sure if I picked that one out of the book or not, or if I did that one. Have we got one in here that looks like that? Oh, we got one that's not in the book. Or am I missing it? Did I miss it? You guys are probably yelling at me. No, I don't think so. So we're going to be doing this one the next time. So I'm going to leave that there for a second. Let me put it under the light better. So if you want to take a picture. So this one is squares and half squares. So it's a pretty simple one. Squares, 2 half squares, and all squares. I thought, excuse me, I thought after this one we did today, you might want a little rest on the next one. Okay? So it isn't, I don't see it, unless I'm missing it. I don't see it in here. But that's okay. We'll get it done. So, all yours came out great, Rhonda? Good. Okay, so let's see. We got, what do I do with my squares now? So, let me see. That one's there. This one's here. And I think, oh, I got a big piece of fabric here. That's not helpful. And then this one is here. Or we may switch them around and go this way. Who knows? Who knows? So we're working on this block, the one that's going to be here next. Because our picture is right there. Oh, can stay in the light, don't we? There we go. How's that? So I'm leaving that for a second so you can take a picture if you need to. Okay, and I know this is one color. You can do it however you want. Okay, so I'm just going to wait a minute. So next Thursday, let me see, what's today? Today's the 8th. So the 15th is our next class, 7 o'clock. You know, shoot, I was so busy today, I never did put a reminder out today on Facebook, did I? I was going to say you can go ahead and post your pictures to that. But you can post them to the last one, it's okay. So does anybody have any questions? So considering how many pieces there were to that block, we did it in pretty good time. And again, you can turn this around whichever way you want. Whatever makes you happy, and you don't have to decide that until you get ready to put everything together. And if you want to, in between time, you can do another block. So if you have two sets, you'll end up with having like a smaller wall hanging if you don't want to have a table runner, or you could have a table topper that was more square that can go on a square table, or even a round table and the four corners would hang off. So, is everybody good? I'm just going to give it a minute to double check to see if anybody has any questions at the end. Otherwise, I'll see you next Thursday. Some of you I'll see Saturday afternoon. We're working on the placemat that we started the week before Saturday, our Halloween placemat. And remember, make a note, I have to work Saturday, so it'll be 1:30 or so before I can start the YouTube, depending on what time my class gets done at where I work, and traffic and so forth. So normally we're at 1, so this Saturday will be 1:30, could be a little later, and I'll go on as soon as I can, even if it's a little early, and we have to wait. No matter what time I go on, I'll make sure we wait 5 or 10 minutes, because I know if you do the YouTube subscribe and then the little bell, that it'll notify you when I go live. So I will make sure I wait 5 minutes at least, 5 or 10 minutes, so that if you get the notice, you can get ready. So again, thank you. Give me a thumbs up if you can, or if you'd be so kind, and I'll see you soon.